run it out, punch so quick. We're in it for the long haul. This is it. Run it out, run it out.
What's up, punks? Welcome back to the Poker Punx Show. I am Jason, aka Poker Punx, and I am your host. This week, we are going to go over another spot in the same tournament from last week, a $100 buy-in Friday night fight on PokerStars with a 10K guarantee. Now, this is a hand that happened a bit later in the tournament. We are getting close to the bubble, but we are not in the money yet. The effective stack for this hand is our opponent at 38 bigs. We have him covered, and we're sitting in the big blind with 9-7 of hearts. Now, this is a spot where cautious big blind defense is crucial because we're looking to accumulate chips and be able to get a big stack going into the bubble so that we can push smaller stacks around. Defense can be pretty wide here and still be profitable because we are the big stack at the table. So therefore, we can dictate hands that we play aggressively, hands that we play cautiously. Caution is the key out of the blind because since I don't know exactly the range that this opponent is opening, I need to play pretty wide but pretty cautious. We are able to range our opponents based on their bet sizing on subsequent streets and their actions on subsequent streets and decide whether or not our hand is worth continuing with. And then when we do make a big hand, we need to charge max value for our premium holdings. When we get there on them, we need to make them pay. So, as I said, we are in the big blind with 9-7 of hearts and get a couple folds to the villain who opens for 2 bigs. Pretty standard. I like to go a little bit bigger. I like to go 2.3, but a lot of people will just go min raise here, and it's not anything egregious in my opinion. Folds around to me. Now, as you can see here, 9-7 of hearts is definitely a call most of the time. GTO Wizard likes to raise it about 18% of the time. This is in a situation where I think that's a good play because my hand will play much better post-flop, but it will not be all that strong pre-flop. If they play back, I have to just fold. So instead of torching chips, we'd rather see a pot here instead of getting into something that could get us in trouble. So we go to a flop of 2 of hearts, 5 of clubs, 9 of clubs. So we hit top pair and we just don't really have much of a kicker, but we do have a backdoor heart draw. So I want to check pretty much my entire range here. Personally, and GTO Wizard likes that 57% of the time. I think if it were certain players that I have really good notes and really good reads on, yeah, maybe it's a lead, but in this situation, there's so much out there that can be beating us, but there's also so much that we can be beating. So instead of overplaying our hand, we want to just sit back, see what they'll do on this street. They could be overbetting. They could be betting any overpairs, any paired hands. They could be even just betting ace highs here. So we want to let them keep all of their bluffs in range. And if they have a really big hand and they're afraid of that flush draw, they'll let us know right away. They bet 2.38 bigs here, which in my opinion, I think is probably a little on the small side. It gives a little bit away about their hand. They don't really fear the flush draw that much. They could have an overpair and are cautious of the flush draw, or they could just be ace high, trying to just take a quick stab and see if I'll resist. We make the call and we go to the Queen of Diamonds. On this Queen of Diamonds, it is a card that could hit my opponent's range, but it doesn't have to. So from this point in the hand, since I have second pair now, they've shown very little aggression so far. I decide to take the lead here and I bet out for 3.4 bigs. Small stab, about a third of a pot size bet. This is me trying to test the waters and see if I'm up against a overpair, maybe a queen, maybe something like a flush draw, Or if I am up against a hand like a set, I should hear back from them right now. They go ahead and they just make the call. So this to me really hems in the range. It hems it into single pair hands. I would think that with the flush draw out there and the queen bringing in some straight draws, I would think that they would raise any sort of 2-pair plus hand at this point. So going into the river, I'm going to play this very cautiously since I do have second pair. There's all the overpairs in their range that they're playing sneaky, plus they could have hit that queen. So when the river comes off the 9 of spades, that's my gin card. That makes me almost certain that I have the nuts here. So at this point, I go from caution to aggression, and I want to think about what kind of sizing I can take that the opponent will call and not make a hero fold. So in my opinion, I think they're going to call pretty big. I go a little bit above half pot, between half pot and 2/3 sizing with about 11.3. The reason I don't go bigger is I want to give them the chance to try to bluff off the rest of their stack. I also want to make sure that I'm going to get called in this situation. I'm only going to get called by hands that are a 1-pair hand. 2-pair probably would have raised on the turn. So I'm targeting 1-pair hands here. If I go too much bigger than this, it gives them the chance to wriggle off the hook and for me to lose any extra value. So by going with this sizing, this middle small sizing, I am only betting 1/3 of their stack, but they will get curious and they will think that I could be on a lot of busted flush draws. They called, we show down, and they end up having queen jack offsuit. Looking at GTO Wizard here, this really, from their position, should be a fold 100% of the time. They have a top pair, but kind of a weak kicker. The board is paired. They're really only beating bluffs at this point. So it's one of those situations where I'm taking advantage of a weaker player who can't fold top pair. If I were in this situation, it'd be a toss-up, to be honest with you. There's so many players out there that would want to bluff this street, but there's so many players who get here with that second pair that have tripped up. So it would be player dependent for me on whether I would call or I would fold. So what can we take away from this hand? Well, first of all, we know defending in the big blind pretty wide can pay, especially on favorable runouts. The villain's flop bet with just 2 overs and a backdoor here kind of was sussed out with that small bet. Betting so small on a flush draw board kind of tips your hand and narrows your range. When they didn't raise my turn bet, it makes it look like they are still pretty weak. They could have top pair and be playing defensive, but it's more likely here that when they don't play back at me, that I'm still ahead. Then they call a large river bet on a paired board. This is the quintessential type of player you want to take for max value. So let's look at what we can take away from this hand. First of all, defending wide from the big blind can pay, especially on favorable runouts. Now, the caveat here is you don't want to defend too much multi-way because then you get in this situation where you start getting too good of pot odds to let go of marginal hands. It's better when it's a heads-up scenario, and it's better when you have suited cards, so you have that little bit of extra equity with the flush draw. With the villain, their flop bet just screamed weakness to me, and it really narrowed in their range to me. I really took out all the overpairs. I really took out all the sets. It really placed them firmly into like an ace-x hand or like maybe even a middle pair below the 9. So it gave me the confidence to bet that turn, even though the queen was not a good card for me. When I bet that turn on the queen that gives them top pair and they don't play back, to me, it's a bit of a caution that they call because it does put overpairs still in their range, even though it's not that likely based off their betting pattern. but it does put a Queen X hand in their range. So my thoughts were at the time, if I don't improve to 2-pair or better on the river, I was just going to check and try and get to a cheap showdown. But when I am able to get there on the river, I want to put out as big a bet as possible to make sure that they call and push as much value as I can out of this hand. Now, some would say, oh, why don't you just go all in there? I don't think an all-in bet's getting called. I don't think this player is that bad where they're just going to call off with just top pair marginal kicker on a paired board. So my goal here, and it's something that I've been working on in my game, is my bet sizing. Bet sizing is important because if you bet too much and they hero fold, you're losing out on value. Sometimes it can be a big bet. Sometimes it can be a small bet. But the important thing is when you are almost certain to have the nuts, you want to bet an amount that can get called. So in the villain's defense here, this river bet could be a lot of bluffed hands that are coming to try and push him off of a hand. The fact of the matter is he ended up turning kind of top of his range. So I think combined with my smallish bet sizing, it really just made the hand a hand that forces him to call to defend against being bluffed too easily. And the fact of the matter is that, yeah, there could be some nines in my range, but there's just as many bluffs in my range as there are nines. So for him to call here, I don't really think it's a big mistake because of my bet sizing. If I would have bet bigger, then the more that I bet bigger, the bigger mistake this is. For this sizing, I really can't blame him for just flicking in the call. So that's the wrap up for this hand this week. Thank you very much for watching. Go ahead, like, subscribe, comment. All those things really help the algorithm push this content out to more like-minded players who are looking to up their game, to get better, and to be hopefully entertained along the way. You can check out all my socials are on the screen. You can also check out what I'm up to at PokerPunx.com, where we have our new merch line that we launched. Hopefully, maybe you find something there that you like. And until next time, run it up the punks.
Run it up, punch so quick. We're in it for the